Flosstube, welcome back to Snickerdoodle Stitch, or welcome if it's your first time here. My name is Kathleen and this is a channel about cross stitch. So, do you ever have one of those weeks where nothing seems to go right? This was my week. Even just right now, I started to film. I had on a different top, getting my lights and camera all set up, and I actually have my phone in front of a really big TV so that I can actually see what I'm doing and see if things are focusing properly. And I sat down and looked up, and this top had some really subtle rhinestones. At least in person they look really subtle. On the screen I look like I'm dressed for a disco. So clothes change. Anyway, that's sort of the way the week has gone. We had we started the week with a hailstorm, so it was toward 6 o'clock. I was wrapping up my work day. I heard it start to rain really hard, and then all of a sudden there's all this racket. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and finally discovered that it was hail about the size of a quarter, coming down like crazy and bouncing up off the ground into the 2 sliding glass doors that are on the back of my house. So it was like somebody was throwing stones at my glass doors. So yeah, during that 15-minute storm, Amazon had left some fabric out on my steps, which they left it in a pouch like this. You probably can't tell. It's sort of that webby kind of stuff. They make the reusable grocery bags out of it sometimes, so it doesn't tear very easily, but it is not waterproof. And so my yard of Hardanger, like when I picked it up by the corner, water was just pouring out of the corner. They didn't have it packaged in anything else. It was just a package just like this with my the mailing label stuck on the front on the porch. So yeah, that was the kind of week it was. I'll talk some more about that and why I was trying to get Hardanger later, because I had a project that went about the way the week is gone. But I had some good stitching. I've got 4 finishes, I think, and I have a start or 2, I think maybe just 1, and some stitching, and then I've done lots of planning for July. So July, I have some focuses that I want to do and another retreat coming up. So I'm going to talk about that. But let's start with the FFOs. I showed, I think last time, because I just got this pattern at StitchCon, this Matilda Drives the Stitchy Bus by Finally a Farmgirl. And the proceeds for this are going to a charity in the Cincinnati area. It's a group home or support services and home for people that just need additional assistance. So I had started this one on some fabric that I hand dyed myself. It was 18 count and I fully finished it. So I'm really happy with the finish. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Maybe if I put it in front of my face. I don't know if the camera wants to focus on faces. So it's all the called for colors, and I just made a little flat pillow, put some chenille around the edge. My plan is to keep this in the bowl with the hands-on design small that I got from the Smalls Exchange, and that will be like my little StitchCon memories bowl. But I just love this little Matilda. The more I stitched on it, the more I loved it. Just the little details, like the little side mirrors, the little tiny white mouse that's hanging on the mirror here, her little puffy sleeves on the mouse that's driving. It's just so sweet. It's a lot of stitches, so even though it's obviously small, it takes some time to get it stitched, because that bus, the mouse, the seat, it's kind of hard to tell, but the sides here are actually stitched in white. My fabric is dyed light with some light blue. I did have to backstitch along those 2 white sides and around the little white mouse that's here on the one mirror, just because the white wasn't showing up enough. I can't get the blue to show up. But yeah, so I'm really happy with that finish. And then I finished and framed things flying around here. The Jardin Prive tea break, which this was the pattern, and I had done some color changes in it as well so that it would match my kitchen, which is where I plan to hang it. But I got it fully finished. So here it is. Let me get it without the glare. Here it is, fully finished and framed. I'm really happy with it. It came out nice, and I found the frame that fit. I did not put the hearts that are around the edge and on the side. I'm not a huge heart person. For some reason it makes me think of like junior high, or I don't know, I don't think of it in my adult decor. So yeah, I'm really happy with this one. Again, it's on a hand-dyed linen that I dyed using the tie-dyed kit that I showed in my Stitchy Bargains video, which is working really nicely for the light colored dyeing, just subtly colored fabrics. And then my next full finish, I don't have the pattern in here, but I had already finished stitching last time the Val's stuff, do one thing every day. And it says do one thing every day that makes you happy. And it's blowing out a bit. Let me see if I pull back. Yeah. I got this journal at Marshall's, and I was just looking for a journal that I could put this piece on the front of to make a gratitude journal. And this one, even though it's not looking like it on camera, it is a deeper orange, closer to the orange that the cat is, so it really makes the cat pop. But then it looked like it was just floating on the front. So I did some extra embellishments. I made a bookmark for it and tied it on with some beads and things here, which maybe we can see if I can untangle them. Yeah, so there's some beads that I put on, and then this was just some trims that I had for my mixed media work. So that is fully finished, and I just I stretched it on a piece of mat board, which just has a piece of dark gray felt glued on top, just to give it a little bit of padding, but not too much. And I did iron on the back of the stitching before I did all that. I ironed a piece of Black Shape Flex 101, which is a an interfacing, which is it feels like a fabric, but it has a glue on one side, so you can iron it on. And I like to do that just because this is gonna get some handling. It's not like something in a frame, and I don't want any of my stitches coming loose if I didn't have the back, you know, the thread really securely anchored or anything. So that was what I put on the back before I stretched it around the felt and the mat board. And I used mat board just so it would have a nice low profile, since I had decided I was going to use it on a journal. So that's my gratitude journal I'll be using. And then this I haven't shown for a long time. I think I showed it in my 2022 finishes or 2023 whips. I don't remember. Something, one of my very first couple videos. I had done Frosty's Night Out by Blackbird Designs, but I had just finished the stitching. I hadn't done the fully finishing. So I've got to get through some of this fully finishing because that pile is in the way in my spare bedroom. So this is a wooden snowflake that I got at Michael's, Joann's, one of the places last winter. And I just spray painted it with some, I think it's satin nickel or hammered nickel, something like that. It's paint that I had left over in my basement from some other project that I was having in my bathroom, I think. And then I just cut a circle of mat board again. I have 2 layers of batting on top of it, and then I pulled the fabric around, and then on the back I did just glue a piece of the dark gray felt on the back to cover where I had the linen gathered and everything. But this is ready for winter now. so that is fully finished. And that was all of my finishes this week. I do have one throwback finish that I came across. This book was in the freebies at StitchCon. I didn't show it last time, I don't think, because I knew I wanted to show it here. I might have this book somewhere, but I can't find it. But I know I did originally have it, because I'm going to show you something I stitched out of it. I love music, and especially when I was in high school and college, I loved anything with a music motif. And I'm pretty sure what first caught my eye was these mice on here. But what I actually have stitched is the little cat playing drums. I played percussion in high school too. So this little cat is stitched on heart hanger, and he's this big. He has been in my kitchen for 30 years maybe. He's in a drawer now. He doesn't sit out, but they used to sell these red, they came in a kit with like the mason jar ring, and then there was a sticky cardboard piece cut to fit exactly, and the puffy thing, which is under here, so it's really puffy. That's hot chocolate in there. But yeah, I still like these little, cats and this crazy little mermaid fish at the top. Like the lounge singer is really silly, but I may do another one of those cats. Although the drums is the only instrument I'm really into. But yeah, so he has been washed a few times just with gentle soap in the kitchen sink. I do know that, but he's in a drawer, so he doesn't really get dirty. Now my disaster project, which ties in with the heart hanger in the rain disaster. I had shown that I bought this Modern Folk Embroidery a winter kaleidoscope when I was at Stitch North. I actually pre-ordered it because I really wanted it. I've been wanting to do one of the Modern Folk embroideries, but I wanted one that didn't have like weird animals that I don't like, or I wanted to do a Modern Folk embroidery or a long dog. So this was the one I settled on. And it's also a manageable size. It's 20 pages. It's not small. It's 383 by 383. So, and you know, a lot of stitching. So I had shown it before because I was looking for help figuring out which color sulky to get. And I finally settled on the 1147 because some people on here very nicely left me comments and made suggestions. And I got the 1147. I liked it. I had decided that just to make it a manageable size, I was gonna do it on 18 count Ada, which is what I've got here. And it's all stretched. This thing is huge. I think it's 25 by 25 is what I ended up cutting. I started using the sulky and I hated the way it felt. So, you know how every now and then if you use floss, and maybe I'm just spoiled right now because I've been stitching with silk, but the sulky really dragged through the fabric. So you could feel it pulling through. It just was not a pleasant experience. And it was a little bulky looking. So it told me it was just too thick for the fabric that I had picked. So I was like, okay, I can adjust. If the sulky is too heavy, then I can use a single strand of silk. So I got out my Splendor, which is actually a color that I liked better than the red sulky. I'm not sure, well, maybe it'll show up. The Splendor is more of a blood red, and the sulky has more of an orange cast to it. And I do like the bluer reds. So I was like, okay, no big deal. I knew I already had a thing of Splendor color that I love. I'll stitch it in Splendor. So I started doing that, and this is actually a lot of stitches. I want to say it was like 600 stitches here. And I had stitched this boring border. They actually looked fine. But then I got into stitching the first motif. And let me hold it up really close and see if you can tell. Maybe it doesn't look too bad here. There we go. I don't like the coverage. It's not as dense as I would like. So I thought, okay, I'll try 2 strands of silk. That's too bulky. I'm feeling like Goldilocks, trying to find the right mix here of fabric and thread. So I thought, okay, it's not giving me quite the coverage that I want on the 18 count. I'll get some Aida and I'll stitch with 1 strand on that and see how that looks. If I don't like that, then I've got to go to another plan. So I ordered the Aida. I wanted it in a hurry because I wanted to start stitching this desperately this week. So hence ordering it from Amazon, even though that would not be my first choice to order from. So I get the fabric. They left it out in the middle of the hailstorm, which there's rain and stuff with the hail too. It's not just the hail. So it was soaked. So I had to do a return and get a replacement. I did get the replacement. It's a no name. It's actually pretty decent quality. It's a little on the thin side. And the holes are maybe a little large in it, larger than like the heart hanger that I have on that pink pillow back there. Oh, I can't reach it. That's like good heart hanger from years ago. But the weave is even. It feels nice. It's a nice cross between soft and stiff and all of that. So I'm not opposed to using this. I'm probably still gonna try this with the 1 strand of silk. But since I had to wait for the second one to come because the first one was rained on and had to get returned, I did also order a full yard of 32 count white Lugana. So that if I really don't like the heart hanger either, I have another choice. This isn't too exciting to look at, but the 32 count weight Lugana, I'm thinking either the sulky or 2 strands of the silk would work. I'm really hoping that the Aida will work with 1 strand and then I'm happy with that. But at that point, after not liking the sulky, then stitching a bunch, not liking the 1 strand's coverage of the silk, and then having my fabric get soaked, I've lost interest in stitching on this project. So it's one of those ones that has kind of felt doomed from the start. Anything that could go wrong has and continued to go wrong. So I think what I'm probably gonna do this weekend, I'm gonna do the test stitching on these other 2 fabrics. See if I like any combination of threads and fabric. If I find a combination that I'm happy with, I'll go ahead and load it on this roller frame, and then I'm probably gonna put this aside and not stitch on it right away because right now it's kind of like bad juju. I'm rolling my eyes every time I go to pick this up. And I don't want this big of a project to feel like that. I want to feel happy when I'm stitching it and happy when I'm starting it. And right now it's just more of a, I just want it to go away. So that's where I'm at with my poor modern folk embroidery. I did some stitching on, well, I did have another start. I thought I did. The Teresa Kogut Sunshines and Blooms, and this was available for the attendees at Stitching in the Wild, which was Garon Stitchery's retreat this spring. And I did check with Gary. He sold out of this. He won't have any more this way, but he thought she was going to release this at market next year. So I'm probably going to keep stitching on it, but I'll pull it out when it gets closer to market if we find out that it is in fact available then. So what I got done was the outline of the basket and then the hill. That yellow that's underneath the hill is actually just part of the fabric. This is Grandma's Slip from Jude Designs. And I left it sitting out for a while. It had been packaged in, you know, one of the plastic kind of bag things. And it has a really funny smell. I don't know what it's dyed with. I know sometimes her fabrics can smell like coffee or... And I love using natural dyes, although I did see someone who dripped some water on an Jude design and it made a big water spot, and unfortunately it was somewhere that I'm not really sure how they would recover from it. That might have been Pam from Stitching in the Land of Good Enough. I can't remember who it was. But I'm probably going to sit this aside and I'll stitch on it later as well. Because I've got some other focuses for July. This needle minder was from Two Needles Pulling Thread. It's two women that have a floss tube. Their floss tube is really nice. I recommend checking it out. They were at StitchCon and they handed these out, and then we all tried to figure out what TTMP was. But then one of the people at my table knew who had left this at the table. And all of a sudden, those of us that have actually watched their floss tube were like, oh, Two Needles Pulling Thread. We knew what it was. So so that was my Teresa Kogut start. Just a small start. I did work on... I think it's been a little while since I showed this. Last time I worked on it was Stitch North. This Broderie à Paris by Sue Hillis Designs. And I worked on this 2 nights. I made some good progress on it. So last time I showed this, I had all of this section done. I had the outlines around here and these birds and this outline, and I had this little strip done. So this week I did this whole side, this bottom, and this, and I sewed on the buttons on here. So I was happy with that progress. I'm really actually wanting to keep stitching on this, so I may stitch on it again tonight. If I can get it uncovered there. So I am stitching on that with Gloriana Silk Tulip. No, Belsois. Classic Colorworks Belsois Tulip is the floss that I'm using for that. The pattern is charted to stitch with red and with white. Since I'm stitching on white, the white just shows through. So it's reducing the number of stitches. Like, you know, all these little cutouts in the lacy parts, these would all be stitched in white. I think some of these things, the middles were completely stitched in white. And since I'm using white fabric, I don't have to do that. The model is stitched on this darker color. I don't know what it is. It doesn't say on the back. We did see this at StitchCon. Sue Hillis was one of the truck shows that were there. So I got to see this stitched up, and that when I saw it, I was like, oh, I want to pull that back out and stitch on it some more. So I actually had it with me there because I was thinking I would stitch on it at every retreat. But as I mentioned in my StitchCon recap, I didn't get nearly as much stitching done as I had at previous retreats. So yeah, these words in here I got finished. They're supposed to be your initials in here, but my initials don't fit. My last name starts with W, which of course is the widest letter, or as wide as M anyway. So I think I'm just gonna put the W. I can't fit my first and last initials, so I either have to find a different alphabet or just use the W. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. But I just moved on from that day. So my plans, I did decide for July to sort of focus on Christmas, but I'm a little bit scattered. I had shown before the Welcome to the North Pole by Primrose Cottage Stitches. That is doing the stitch along, and there's a different section each month now through November, and I got June done. So since tomorrow's July, I want to start July. I want to keep up with this. So it would be this train up here with the toy train. The train is pulling the thing full of toys that says toys. I can't think what you call it. Car. So I will stitch on this in June again, probably this weekend, because I think I will relax more if I just know it's stitched early in the month. And then at Stitch New Jersey, which I'm going to in a couple weeks, there were a couple people that were going to stitch the Christmas Tiny Town as a stitch along by Heart and Hand. And so I pulled the threads for that. They're doing a 3-in-3 at Stitch New Jersey. So you start 3 projects in 3 hours. So they would ring a bell, you would start the first project. At the hour mark, they would ring the bell, you would start the next project. And they gave good tips for it, to have your first stitch started, just so you have already dealt with figuring out where to start on the fabric, what the first color is, all that fun stuff. But I pulled the threads for it and a piece of fabric. They're not my usual Christmas colors. They're a little more rustic. This is coming out even brighter on camera than it really is. These are kind of the rustic Christmas colors, although this turquoise is bright. I don't know, we'll see what it looks like. And this was a scrap of Fiber on a Whim Milk and Honey, maybe? It's cut, I mean, it's a strip that was cut off from something else that I stitched, and it is the perfect size. So I didn't even look for a fabric that I liked. I mean, I like this one fine, and I didn't bother looking for one that I might like a little bit better, because this strip was there and was the perfect size, and actually looks pretty close to the fabric on their sample. So I'm gonna stitch on that at Stitch New Jersey as one of my 1-in-3. This next one is not Christmas, but it's one that I had already planned on stitching there, because it reminds me of New Jersey, because the little trolley actually says Cape May. It was this Erica Michaels, The Beach is Calling, and that little trolley at the upper top says Cape May on it, and Cape May is in New Jersey. It is the southernmost beach in New Jersey, or close to it anyway. I grew up in Delaware, and New Jersey is only, I don't know, 15 miles across the bay. Cape May is right across from the beach that I grew up going to. So I have all of the flosses pulled for it, and I am using the called for fabric. Let me get these DMC bags out of the way. I'm using all the called for flosses and the called for fabric. Let me see if I can get this here. These are really teal looking. I need another pair of hands. Yeah, the fabric is Fabrics by Stephanie Chocolate Milk. And it looks like sand, so it's the perfect fabric for this beach themed, some beach slash summer themed chart. So that will be my second start. I'm so excited for Stitch New Jersey, because Dina from Cross Stitch or Half Stitch Cross Stitch Flosstube is going to be there. I met her at Stitching in the Wild, and in talking with her, she said she was going to be up here. So I'll get to see her, and I will get to meet Lori from Once Upon a Stitch. If you haven't checked out her channel, highly, highly recommend. Her tastes are all over the place. So she does very traditional samplers. She does cute. She does really big. She's done huge long dogs. She does lots of smalls. Yeah, very prolific stitcher and very broad tastes. And she finishes everything herself, and her finishing is beautiful. She's got a lot of creative tips, and she'll tell you where she picked things up. Yeah, Once Upon a Stitch, highly recommend. And she's very bubbly. I laughed when I met Dina at Stitching in the Wild because I told her there had been many nights that I fell asleep watching her, not because she's boring, but because she's got this southern accent and she's so calm all the time. And I would put her on to watch when I would go to bed and want to watch a little floss tube before going to sleep, and I would end up falling asleep. And so the next night I would have to start over and figure out where I fell asleep and all of that. And she said I was not the only person that had told her that. So, but Lori is kind of the opposite. She's very high energy, but wonderful, wonderful projects and fun to watch. So this next one is not Christmas. It's actually Halloween, or Thanksgiving, I mean. And it is my third start that I want to do. It's the new Gobbletons from Aury TM. And the reason I have this Halloween thrown in here is because July Garon Stitchery's designer focus is Aury TM. And I think this is the only Aury TM pattern that I have. And I've been really wanting to stitch it, but it is printed fabric, so it's really just these two Quaker turkeys on the front that you stitch. I don't think I'm gonna do the turkey heads. I think I'm just gonna do the Quaker motifs. I don't know. I'm gonna try it without the turkey heads and see if it looks like it's missing anything. But I actually have two pieces of the Fabric Flair, I think it's Lugana. It just says 28 even weave, but it's really pretty printed fabric. So they're large. I think they had the Fabric Flair. I think they had this in even weave, like it's Lugana or Jubilant, something like that. And Ada may have been the only two choices, but it's really pretty fabric just on its own, and then stitching those Quakers on there. I bought this last year at Galleria in September, and then didn't get around to stitching it. I was stitching the Primitive Hair Halloween, and then I had a different Quaker I was stitching, and I actually bought two pieces of this fabric thinking I was going to stitch one for myself and one for somebody else, but this year I am going to stitch it. Here they have a couple where they've just stitched the Quaker turkeys in different colors than what they're charted on the front. But it kind of shows you there's really not that much stitching on these. I mean, a couple Quaker motifs, there's some color changes in there, but that for me is maybe 2 days work. 2 evenings stitching, maybe 3, I don't know. When I did my big Quaker, I could usually get almost a Quaker circle done in 1 evening. If they were really stitch intensive, it would take me longer, but we'll see if I don't do the turkey heads. So I'm gonna start that at Stitch New Jersey. So those are my three. My 3 starts would be the Christmas Tiny Town, the Beach is Calling, and the Fall thing. But then I wanted to focus on Christmas for July, because I think I mentioned before, I'm typically a seasonal stitcher, so I will do Halloween for like September and October. Then I have really only a month to do fall stitching, and then I really only have a month to do Christmas stitching. So I've got a lot of Christmas patterns, so I want to get some Christmas stitching done this month. But I don't know that I will get more done than Christmas Tiny Town and the North Pole is Calling. But I would like to, if I don't lose it, I would like to stitch something from this book. I got this on Amazon. It's by Veronique, Enginger. Okay, I have to think my French pronunciation there. I may have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. And it's called The Magic of Christmas. And if you look for her on Etsy, there is a shop there that sells PDFs of patterns by her, and I fell in love with them there. They're a little pricey, but they're so sweet. They're very retro. So this is, I'll just show a couple pages from here. This one, I love the one at the top with the mother, like, I don't know if she's buttoning the jacket or what's happening up there. And that little snowman is sweet. See how it has the 2 in it and the snowflake has the 3? There's actually 24. She has those little seals that you can do an advent calendar. This one's the toy store with the little kids looking in the window. So the kids at the bottom that just sort of look like they're pink or rose colored. That's just the kind of shadow of them because they're looking in the lighted up toy store window. I thought that one was sweet. That one's bigger, but there's a lot of really tiny ones in here. I love these little kids cutting down the tree, and the trees at the top are all sweet. So there's lots of tiny little things in here. There is backstitch. It's all DMC. Most of the European designers seem to just use DMC, which is nice. This one, the little girl reading from the book, and there's a little boy sitting there, and then they've got like the teddy bear, like the stuffed animal doll kind of things watching. Meanwhile, Santa and the reindeer are flying up there in the sky. I thought that one was really cute. She has some really cute on the Etsy shop, like 1950s retro looking ladies that I like. These mice, yeah, really the mice. Although I like this little reindeer pulling the sled with the bunny and chipmunk in it. But I have a piece of Lugana. Oh, and here's some, like, just these Christmas balls at the top are so detailed and delicate looking. There is a lot of color changes in these, but not the things in the advent calendar circles only have a few colors each. So I have the piece of Lugana that I've got 5 Christmas ornaments already stitched on it, and there's room for a 6th one, and I would like to go ahead and get a 6th ornament on there so that I can cut that apart and do the full finishing. Right now I've just been leaving it as one big piece because that's easier to manage to stitch in the little section. If I cut that, it's not going to be big enough for a hoop. So I think I'm going to pick something out of here to stitch on that. I'm not going to haul this to Stitch New Jersey though. It's a hardcover book. She has a few others on Amazon, this designer. She's obviously European, French speaking, because some of the books on Amazon are actually in French. This one is in English. Let me double check now that I said that. Yes, it is in English. But some of the books are in French, but a lot of really cute retro sweet designs. So that's on my list. I lost my mind and kitted up a couple more projects. I talked about them last time because I had bought fabric. I showed this fabric from Rivaris, which I bought at StitchCon, and I said I thought I was pretty sure I knew what I wanted to do. I couldn't remember the name of the pattern, although I inserted a picture of it, but it's this playing with jacks. And they have it charted that you can do the pumpkin in the middle without the, well, I guess you would just fill them in all white maybe. Do the pumpkin in the middle without the Halloween face so that it would really work for all fall. So I went ahead and pulled the floss. Actually, I went and bought the floss because I had too many colors that are already in some other projects. And now I'm trying to decide between the two colors. It's very nice on this eggplant color. It would work. And I'm not exactly sure what else I would do with this eggplant color. Oh, I forgot. I had these pulled. These colors here, closest to me, are the ones that are going to be up next to the fabric. Some of these other bright colors are really just accents. So it looks okay on that. I really like it better on the green. Again, it's these colors over here that are the dominant ones, and they look really nice on the green, but one of the greens is actually pretty close to the, this is pretty close to the fabric. So I would maybe have to do a color substitution. Where it gets used are these tiny little acorns at the bottom. So they would certainly be easy enough to substitute. I mean, that's so tiny. I could do a brown for the acorn top or anything. It's the acorn tops or is that green, and I don't think it's gonna show up on the fabric, but I could do a really dark brown and it would pop. So I'm leaning toward the green for that. I've got both of them stuck in here now, but the fabric's big enough. The colors did match as well as I had hoped they would. And when I pulled that, I do have another Cricut collection one. This one's called A Wicked Patch. And I love this one too. I'm not going to stitch this on that fabric. But I just pulled it out to show everybody because it was right next to the Playing with Jacks. I like the Playing with Jacks. Jacks is spelled J-A-X. That was my old cat's name. So I pulled that to go on the Rivaris. I went ahead and kitted that up. And then I had shown this Grace Notes Doris, which I bought even though I wasn't supposed to be buying any of this fabric. But I bought it because they had full half yards. And there was a Mirabilia that I thought would look good on it. And it wasn't a Mirabilia, it was a Nora Corbet. It's the same designer, but these are generally smaller. But it was this pattern, and I love it. I don't love the brownish background. I don't like brown. I just don't. It's not gonna end up in much of my stitching unless it's something, you know, like a dog or something that would only be, well, even a dog, I could end up changing the color, but I might not. But these are the colors. So most of that dress is actually black, and then it's got some highlights in the blues. But these work on here. So I am going to stitch that on here. So since I pulled the colors to see if this fabric would work, I just went ahead and put it in one of my fabric pouches. I even have the glass beads for this. I got this whole thing at Stitch by Stitch in Cape May, New Jersey. I went to that needlework store one time. I know Cape May is about a 2-hour drive from here. And teeny tiny little shop, but oh my God, packed with stuff. So many patterns. And I had a good time talking to the owner and somebody that was working in there. But since this is a half yard, and this is Gigi, which is one of the Bewitching Pixies. And there are other Bewitching Pixies. And I have seen someone do it where they use this one facing that direction, and they did another one. No, this one's facing this direction. They did another one that faces the other direction. So it was the two Pixies kind of facing each other. they might have even stitched a fence or something in there. I'm having trouble remembering now, but they stitched 2 of them on one piece of fabric, and that was kind of cool. So I probably, to start stitching this, will place it on the fabric so that I can go that route if I want, or I can cut the fabric and frame it and have it as a solo, since I haven't quite decided what direction I want to go with that. And I think that is everything. So I'm just double checking because I've kind of got a disaster happening here tonight. Thank you for stopping and visiting. Thank you so much for all your comments. I do read all the comments. I love getting feedback and hearing what you're stitching, and I'm able to connect with people this way. Connected with people through comments that I met at conventions, people who will be going to the other conventions or retreats that I'll be at. Yeah, and just people in general, and sharing stitchy tips, and other people have shared with me how they stitch things. I had shown at StitchCon, I got a dimensions kit that was little jar ornaments, and someone in their comments told me their daughter had stitched it on Ada and framed them all in little black frames, and they looked really sweet that way. So I had said I wasn't sure I was going to stitch it on the it was like perforated paper, but it was clear plastic, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stitch it that way or not. And so someone left me some comments. So I love reading those kinds of comments. If anybody's stitched anything that I'm working on, if you're getting ready to, if it's something you do want to stitch on, if you have ideas or feedback, I love reading that. So thank you, everyone, and happy stitching. Bye.